Hey guys, hope you're all having a great week. Welcome to episode 7 of Banking, Bills and Bevs. You're joined by myself, Mr. Manager, Will from AppTap, and we're joined today by special guest Mohammed Kazzam. And we're going to be talking a little bit about open banking with purpose and about his app, Nomy. Mohammed, how are you doing?
Yeah, great. Excited to be here, talk open banking. It's just, great to find people in and around the industry with a similar mindset and all moving in the same direction in terms of finance.
Yeah, because it's like a relatively new space. I think open banking as we currently know it kind of kicked off in 2014, 2015. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start your app?
Sure. So my background has kind of been mixed. I wasn't in finance. I worked a lot in management consulting and strategy. And then in the last 3 years, I got more and more involved with fintech. I worked at TravelX. We were just rebuilding an international payments business. And I kind of like almost kind of fell into building a finance app with Samsung Pay that sat within the Samsung Pay wallet in the US. So that was kind of my gateway into fintech. But around the same time, I guess I had started getting more and more curious about all these apps as the new banks came out. And for me, it's like I'm always up for checking something out that's new and fresh. Mm-hmm. And that's at that very, very early stage of open banking. And with these new banks coming out, everything felt new and fresh. Everything felt less clumsy. And, that just intrigued me from almost like a customer perspective, also my kind of like business curiosity perspective. And so I just kind of got into, developing a really bad habit of opening bank accounts with every single bank, which probably was terrible for my credit rating.
Yeah. We've all been there.
I kind of like just got pretty much addicted to doing that. At the time also, like I had started saving more, so I was kind of more about trying to figure out how to optimize my finances. So it kind of like, it was a mixture of like personal one to kind of improve how I use my money, but also just curiosity from a business perspective from my kind of like strategy commercial side.
Okay, wicked. And as you've just sort of pointed out, there are loads of entrants in this space now. 5 years ago, there was maybe a couple, but there are lots of different companies doing lots of different things in the open banking space. Including your app, including AppTaps when it comes to bill switching and cancelling and that sort of thing. So what are you doing that's different to the rest?
Sure. So I think what open banking done is quite put a lot of power back in the consumer hands. I think the whole concept of having access to your transactions is great. I mean, you're ultimately indirectly finding ways to monetize your data, because you're kind of, number one, you're sharing that with third parties that might then be able to save you money in different ways. Or even say if you are all these new finance lending apps or services that are coming out, they can give a better rate for you in theory by having access to transactional history. So you are indirectly monetizing your data in that way. Mm-hmm. Now, people are slowly becoming more conscious of how they're buying and how they're spending their money. So obviously we have the huge momentum in the global warming front. There's a lot in the diversity. The government is collecting data on corporates and how they're actually governing their companies. And I think all these things are really important because they kind of reflect our society in how we uplift the companies that we spend with and how we, indirectly don't with others. And that's where Nomy came to an idea for me, where I personally wanted to make myself more accountable to spend at sort of black-owned businesses and local businesses in UM. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but when you start monitoring it, it's something that you can start. It becomes. Sorry, did you say what?
So, but getting close. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to do that effort, and that's when I thought, how can we leverage open banking in a way that not only looks at like how you can save better or spend better, save better or spend less, but also look at the quality of the spend to a certain degree. And that's how the mission of Nomy came to be.
That's somewhere where AppTap actually started. So we started by trying to link people's spending to their carbon footprint, but obviously really, really difficult. So what have you found? I know you're still really early, but in the customer interviews and things that you're doing, which I'm sure you're doing, what have you found in terms of the appetite, right? So we'd go down kind of High Street Ken or Oxford Street and be like, would you use this? People are like, yeah. Obviously, any way to help me be better to the environment. But then when you actually put it out there and it's, take the bus instead of taking an Uber, it goes out the window. So what have you found? And how have the initial steps in that journey been for you?
So I very much think that when it comes to a user journey within a product, you don't want to kind of expose those customers to everything at the same time. You want to almost graduate them to different levels. So like if someone has real difficulty in governing their spend, there's no real point in talking to them about saving, and like they need to improve their saving, because like there's a barrier to kind of in your psychology to start thinking about saving. But once you start saving, even if you start saving a small amount, maybe in a few months you see you have like £500, or even in a year £500, that will give you momentum to take it to the next level. So now you might think about, what are ISAs? What are lifetime ISAs? What are different investment instruments? And I think the key about Nomy is that what we try to do is have that inherently linked, where once you enter as a customer, you go on a journey and you're not necessarily exposed to everything at once. And you kind of graduate from stage to stage as you achieve a bit more autonomy in your finances. So once you have your saving, maybe you can start thinking about, maybe this purchase, I'll actually look into ordering something online from a company that, fits with what I believe in. And we're just trying to spark that conversation and quantify it in a way that is productive, rather than making people feel like we're imposing what their ethics should be. But I'm really quite interested to hear about the carbon footprint that you were speaking about.
Well, it's something that's kind of, it's there and it's in the back of our minds all the time, right? And it's, I think for us, right, it's about enabling customers to be able to do, like you said, give them the options, right? Give them level the playing field a little bit, and how do we use open banking to then do that? For us, then it's the next steps into kind of open data in general, as opposed to just open finance. What can we do in utilities and in telecoms and insurance products, and start to bring those together to say, this is who you are, this is your kind of usage financial profile, and can we then say, based on this, these are the best things that are out there, right, for you, and then it's on you to make that choice. So it might be that you want the greenest energy, or you want the fastest broadband, or whatever it may be, right? But I'm really inspired and interested by kind of how you dig deeper into who those providers are, right? So I'm wary I always pick on British Gas. I need to think of someone else. If like, EDF versus Bulb, right? What are they doing? Not only in the types of energy that they're providing, solar versus kind of oil and gas, but who are they as a company? So I'd be interested to know kind of what kind of response, or what have you seen from the more provider side or the companies, right? That, if at all, right? If you started to look into that, because we are making it easier for customers to leave, right? Or to change something. We're making them more aware that the deal they're on might not be the best deal, right?
Yeah, and if I could add to Will's question as well, it's like, like how are you deciding which are the purpose-driven companies and which are not? And how do you use open banking to do that?
What I'm trying to do is use completely open source data. So I'm trying to use, for example, with the board diversity data, that the government releases that on a yearly basis now. With EcoFashion, there's several companies trying to and have are quite deep into rating these companies on EcoFashion. And then from a local perspective, you can, as you know, open banking, you usually have postcode tags, and they're very accurate. So it was more, number one, trying to figure out what data sources will be easy to give people, not necessarily which data sources are easy, but I guess number one, what are some of the key issues that we are talking about, particularly this last year?
Yep.
That's what I took my most kind of like inspiration from, and then crossing that over in places where I felt confident enough where I could develop data sets against with a reasonable accuracy. So what we'll be doing once a customer has approved our connection to our app Nomy, we'll be reviewing the transactions against our built data sets. And from MVP perspective, it will be a relatively simple feature where it will just show a tally of how it is. The long-term vision of so it will be say, oh, you spent like £200 this month in a 2-mile radius of your house, based on the transactional data that comes along with open banking. Then what kind of the long-term goal is being able to do a bit smarter things with that, saying like, actually, you bought coffee from here, right? From Starbucks. Did you know that there's 2 other coffee places around the corner? So from MVP perspective, it's going to be simple, a simple model of trying to quickly quantify people against markets that they might be interested against, and then graduating that over time to have smarter, able to make to a certain degree some sort of suggestions around where, not suggestions where you should shop, but what options are available in a way that is productive for the customer.
Got a question to both of you. Do you think that using the technology to help people spend with purpose will result in change, both on the consumer side, but also on companies going, gosh, if I don't offer green energy, or if I'm a fast fashion company, then I'm in trouble and I best change up my practices? Because that's huge. That's very powerful if that starts to happen.
I think it has to, right? And there will just be so much, and we're seeing the social pressures already, like you mentioned, throughout the course of this year alone, and brands starting to speak up about things like Black Lives Matter, and it's so important that happens. And I think money talks at the end of the day, and so if people are spending their money on a green energy provider or a Black-owned business, or moving away from fast fashion, then great, and it will force the hand of others, but it's about volume, right? And how do we get that to the masses quickly? And so to see something like your business, Mohammed, is great. To it's inspiring. It's really nice to see.
Thanks. Just as a question, like, I think I agree with everything Will said. I think ultimately, if you look at some of the changes that we had in the fashion industry already, like now, if you go on H&M's website, they will have a full list of their suppliers. Like you can find more information now, and that's all consumer pressure. That over time may have then led to initiatives within companies, but a lot of these things are purely consumerism pressure, because that's what most companies, I'm not saying all, but most companies will respond to that faster than anything else. It is an interesting question to see how much companies will start leaning into it, and you see companies like BP, for example, that have made a full commitment and like, or I can't remember exactly, is it 2050 they're saying they want to be carbon neutral, and now BP had a model that was working pretty well. They had a lot of profitable oil gases. Now over time that has declined, and that has got them, the instability in their market has got them thinking about alternative sources. But that's ultimately because more choices have emerged, more technology have emerged, where consumers can actually make a pretty easy choice. And with that easy choice existing, then puts pressure on the rest of the industry. So you just put the example that you just talked about bulb in these companies. Like before, it was so hard to figure out, like, number one, like pricing structures in the energy industry is really confusing. and that's someone that's worked in the energy sector. I was a management consultant in the energy sector. I worked in as an engineer as well, and like still those invoices are still really hard to understand. Especially when you move homes and like there's different handover points. You know, I sat down and looked at my British Gas, and I had moved, I can't remember to which company when I first moved here, and it took me, I'm not joking, about 5 months to sort out that final bill because I kept on finding mistakes in it, and I was like literally on forums trying to figure out how to decipher them.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But then you see companies like Bulb, and you know, very customer centric kind of proposition. Of course, they are without their faults. But you know, personally, I am a Bulb customer, and my experience has been pretty good. Also, there's other thing that when you come to a lot of these kind of like commodity markets, it's very hard to product differentiate. So people are generally kind of in that situation where there's a lot of choice and very little product differentiation. People are gonna default to the cheapest thing because it's very hard to decipher. So I think these new companies, what they've done is like they've made it accessible, and they've talked to people that, you know, want to have a more conscious kind of look in how they're consuming energy. Mm-hmm. And that has indirectly then put pressure on the whole oil business and companies like BP. So like BP come out with a huge commitment, which I think, you know, can still be applauded, but ultimately that came up from innovation and customer pressure. Yep. And yeah, I think that is the main route forward.
That's wicked, man. That sounds like a good note on which to wrap up the conversation. Where can people find you, man?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Kazzam. That's Kazzam twice. And yeah, that's the best place to get to me.
And as we can see on the screen behind you, join the waitlist at www.nomy.
Exactly. I need to get better at saying this, but yeah, please join the waiting list at nomy.app. And yeah, we'll keep you in the loop, and we have a lot of exciting things coming out in the next few months.
Excellent. Okay. I would look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Definitely, it would be good to jump on a call.
Cool. That brings us to the end of this week's episode, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back at the same time next week. Thank you very much, Will, Mohammed. Take care.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Will. Take care, guys.